Hey everyone, it is John with Seattle Coffee Gear in the commercial kitchen. Today we're doing an important video on machine maintenance, and we're talking about backflushing and how to backflush properly. This is something that you probably or hopefully already know how to do and you're already doing well, so maybe this is just a refresher for you, or you are new to the commercial environment and this is just going to be helpful for you to see me do it and hear why you do some of the things, because I'm going to explain why we backflush, why you do certain steps when you're backflushing, and just get a little bit more in depth. Well, let's get started. Here I have some of the tools that you need for backflushing. Just down the line here we have a pitcher. I'm actually going to switch this out for a larger pitcher because that's going to make things a little bit easier. We have a blind portafilter basket or blank portafilter basket. That just means it doesn't have any holes in it. We have some of our cleaning powder. We use Cafiza. There's some other brands out there, but this is the one that we prefer. I have this little tool, which is super helpful. This is from Palo. This is kind of a multi-tool. Has a little prior here for getting your baskets out of portafilters. Has this tool here, which is great for taking out the screens. And then these two here are helpful for removing steam wand tips. And then this right here is helpful for calibrating thermometers. So a nice multi-purpose tool, really good to have. And then the last tool is just a brush. This one's a little bit shorter than I like. I like the longer ones, just so when you're scrubbing up here with hot water going, you don't burn your hands. So these are the main tools that you need when you're backflushing. Most coffee shops should be doing a thorough backflush with a cleaning powder at the minimum nightly. If you are a specialty coffee shop and you're trying to keep your machine super squeaky clean, in the shops that I've worked in, we did it every 2 hours, and throughout the day we would just do backflushing with water, and then at the end of the night we would backflush with a cleaning powder. Just the reason we did that is because this cleaning powder is basically soap, and soap doesn't play well with your body. And so as a safety precaution, we only did it at the end of the night, so we had plenty of time to rinse all of this out, so we weren't serving soapy coffee and doing bad things to our customers. The first step when you're backflushing, besides removing the portafilter, is coming up here and dropping these screens. This rocket is a little bit different than some machines, and I'll show you guys in a second, so just bear with me while I get this out of here. Some machines I can do this hands-free, but I am not at that point with this machine yet. So when you're taking these out, it's a good idea, at least if you're doing it the way I am, to have some sort of towel underneath here, because then when these, wait for it, drop, they drop onto that towel. And instead of clanging on your drip tray, possibly losing this little screw here, they go right onto that towel, and it's just easier to keep track of things. There's less chance of damaging one of these, and it's just less jarring. These are pretty hot, so what you can do in a shop if you have a towel, a bar towel, is unscrew them with the bar towel. Just make sure that bar towel is pretty clean, because this is something that's touching the coffee which people are drinking. This takes us to the next step. Before I get there though, this uses a unique style of dispersion block. This is a piece of brass and it disperses water throughout. That head there has a little seal here. The La Marzocco models use this screw to disperse the water. It has a hole in it and some holes in the side of it, and that disperses the water across this little screen, drops it out evenly so your coffee is evenly saturated and evenly extracted. But this is a little bit different. So what you want to do is get all of this in your pitcher. I'm only going to do one of these at a time. At the end of the night, you are going to take some of your Kafiza, sprinkle it in here, and then I also soak my baskets. This machine has been cleaned recently, so hopefully these won't be too nasty. But oftentimes you'll get some buildup on the bottom of that, and that's just old coffee that's making your other coffee taste not as good. The other reason that we're soaking all this stuff is just to clear it out, make sure that all the holes that should be clear are clear, so that you're maintaining that even dispersion of water. It's going to make your coffee taste better. If you have a spouted portafilter, this is a good opportunity to soak the spouted portafilter, because as you see here, there's a lot of coffee residue on the inside of that that's affecting the flavor of your shots. If you're using a bottomless portafilter, there's really no need to soak your portafilter, and you're really just going to cause unnecessary damage. With these spouted ones, you want to make sure that the water isn't getting above this part on the handle, because that can cause this to separate and will have you replacing your portafilters more frequently. So putting all this stuff in here, and then all I need is some hot water. This Kafiza does bubble up once water hits it because it is soap. So I don't fill this quite to the top. I wait until that Kafiza bubbles up, and then I add some more water to it. What baristas do now that is a common mistake is they will start backflushing right now. That's not a good idea, because you don't have that screen protecting the inside of your machine. And if something in here, some sort of particle, a piece of coffee or something like that, gets sucked up into your solenoid valve and blocks that, that becomes a pretty expensive repair at that point in time. Most baristas, the reason they would backflush right now is because that has to soak for a half hour. And that's a half an hour where they could be backflushing and then doing other things, and it just saves them time in their closing routine. A note to those baristas, it's better to be the barista that gets out a little bit later than to be the barista that caused the espresso machine to break. So just wait till you have your screens back up in here before you backflush. You're protecting your machine. You're also getting a little extra cleaning on those screens. It's just a good idea to wait. So while that is soaking, something you can do now is take your brush, and I like to get it a little bit wet, and then scrub your gasket. Make sure you're scrubbing everything up here, anything that could get coffee on it, just to break any stuff loose up there. And that's also going to protect your gasket and extend its life somewhat as well. Now is when you can be doing other things. You can be cleaning the rest of your shop. You can be texting your significant other while your shop is closing. But I'm going to step away and come back once that finishes soaking. Those have been soaking for a while, so we are going to move on to the next step here. The next step is giving this a good scrub. So I'm going to be careful with that, and then dunk my brush in a little bit of that solution, and just try and get anything that didn't come off in that soak, get all of that removed. And we're looking pretty good here. And cool. I'll give this a rinse now. So this looks a lot better than it did. It was already looking okay. It wasn't caked or anything like that. But I mean, after a soak, that's probably about as good as you're gonna get it. The metal just kind of naturally discolors over time. You'll see this in a lot of portafilters, so that's okay there. The next thing I'm gonna do, this is kind of a trick that I figured out to not burn myself. And instead of pouring this out and possibly dumping my screws and stuff down the drain, instead of trying to reach in there and burning myself, What I like to do is just start filling this with some cold or lukewarm water until it gets to about the temperature where I can reach in and grab stuff out of there. So I'm going to do that now. This is also an opportunity to rinse out all the parts that you just had soaking. So here's my basket after a cleaning. Still has a little bit of kind of coffee particles on it, but no staining or anything like that. So that was successful. And then I have my little dispersion block, which is now clean. And then I have my screen. Both of those are good to go. Turn this water off. And then I also have my screw. So that's my trick for getting those out of the water without burning yourself and without dumping those down the faucet. You might have your own trick for doing that. If you do, leave us a comment down below. Would love to hear if you have something better that you use. You may find that you have to scrub this piece. If you're using the La Marzocco, it would just be a bigger version of this. You may have to scrub that. And if you're doing this in the middle of the day with just water, you just scrub these two underwater, and that does a good job. And do the same thing with this basket. So now we get to the point where we get to put it all back together. This one is kind of fun to put back together because you have to find that spot and then get the screw to catch. And we are good to go there. So now all I have to do is get it tightened up. Almost there. It's really important not to cross thread this. So if you get any major resistance when you're screwing this in, take it out and try again. All right, there we go. So then that's back up in there. So now I'm good to start the actual backflushing process. I take my blind basket. Each of these cleaning things will have a good answer for how much you should use. This one says 3 grams. So give it a little shake there. That looks about right to me. And then this machine has automatic backflushing. This does have instructions on it. And so what I'm going to do, instead of using the auto backflushing on this, I'm just going to do a manual cycle, just like the old days before manual backflushing existed. So 10 seconds on. Watching that pressure build. And then we turn it off, and it's a little bit short there. I'm counting in my head now. My head might be different than the time on this video, so excuse me there. Start that again. If you have a timer, it's really easy to do this. What this is doing now is building up that pressure, and then when I shut it off, this water doesn't have anywhere to go, so it's all getting forced back through the solenoid valve, and it's cleaning out all the old coffee residue and anything like that back in there. And it's just kind of exercising that valve to make sure it stays working. So it's really important to do this every night to make sure your machine is staying in tip-top shape, and your coffee is also tasting as good as it can. So that was 3 or 4. It's also why it's handy to have a timer here, because as I'm talking, I'm forgetting how many times I'm doing this. So I'm going to call this my last time here. And this is going to be a little trick that some of you, if you've been baristas for a little bit, you probably know this trick, or if your trainer shared it with you. But The gaskets on this machine are pretty fresh, so that's why I'm stopping this. If these gaskets were a little bit older, I could just let it keep running before I do this. But if I turn it on and then let pressure build up slightly, and then I just need to rock this back and forth, and that's just forcing water up in that gasket and cleaning that gasket even a little bit more. Now I want to get all of that kefisa out of there. I even give it a little bit of that to try and get it all out. Look up, I'm okay there. So now what I'm gonna do is 5 more times with just water. I just did my last time with water, and so I'm gonna give it a little run and do the same thing with water that I did with the kefisa. Get to the end here, and looks good to me. So now I pop this out, pop my basket back in, and this group is backflushed. Now I know that a common practice is to pull a shot on this and then dump that out to make sure you're getting all of your cleaning solution out of there. Totally fine to do that, and I would recommend doing that. I'm not gonna do that now, but just make sure that you're getting all the kefisa out of there so you're not giving that to a customer or to yourself if you're gonna taste this after it is cleaned in the middle of the day or the next morning. That has been this video on backflushing and cleaning an espresso machine. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You learned something, maybe some tips that you didn't already know before. This is important to keeping your machine running well and to keeping your coffee tasting as good as it can. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe for notifications if you want to see more of our videos. Thank you guys again for watching. Have a good one.